is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
Oh my goodness, don't look now, but it is December of 2025. 1 month from today, 2026. Unbelievable. What the hell? How did that happen? The years, man, can't even say how fast they go now. Did we even have a March or a June? I don't remember.
Seems like yesterday we're getting ready to do Nancy Lieberman at the end, and now all of a sudden we're the next.
That's right.
Yeah.
This goes by so quickly.
Ridiculous.
Well, this has just been a weird year because of the fire in January. It feels like this year has flown by, and on the other hand, it feels like that fire was 10 years ago. So
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the bathtub incident. I mean, you've been going through a lot.
Yep. We won't get into
that. We don't
that.
want to talk about the streak.
No, we don't want to talk about that. Hey, welcome to the Past Our Prime podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Scott Johnson, along with my two other hosts, Billy and Mark, on hand. And today is a big one for the Pop Podcast. Mark, you care to tell our listeners what today is for the show? Bill, you guys know?
What is it? 100th episode.
It's our 100th episode.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh my God.
100 shows. Take a bow.
We're centenarians.
We have a perfect way to celebrate. The last team to have a perfect season in college hoops was the 1975-76 Hoosiers. And on the cover of the December 1, 1975 issue of SI, I use Benson Kent and his teammate and friend from 50 years ago, Bobby Wilkerson, both be joining us in just a bit. Looking forward to that. You know, there was another Past Our Prime podcast when we got started. And they had like 25, 30 episodes. And that I was like, that's my goal. Beat them. I want when people do a search for Past Our Prime, I want ours to come ahead of theirs. And I haven't done that in a while, so I don't know if that's the case. But we have really dwarfed them, and no sign of letting up now. So
but it's what you look at it. A lot of people, when they do this, they expect to hit, like a few shows in. So they get to 25 and go, yeah, I'm done. Not us, man. We've gone to 100 and still say, man, we're still loving it. But a lot of guys just get out. I don't.
That's almost as long as my Wordle streak.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's just what we've done. What we've done is just keep going, and we keep getting better. That's the key.
Lot of work and no monetary payoff. So, you have to be disciplined and look for other reasons to keep doing it. And I think the reasons are obvious. While we enjoy talking the issues and all that, Fran Tarkington, Dan Fouts, Jim Lampley, there's your reasons right there. And those are the ones I mean, we talk so many times to your Daryl Smiths and your Lynn Coxes and stuff.
Can I mention someone?
Please.
Joe Fowler. I was doing his episode, putting some on TikTok and Facebook Instagram. His stories and he's such a great storyteller. He tells the one where he jumps on the field and goes and argues with the ump. Just great stuff. I mean, it's great to say we have the names, but it's guys like him that make the show. It's just great stuff.
I agree. Yep. I'll give a nice shout out to Joe Fowler. We'll have him on again because that was the first Super Bowl he ever went to was the one last year, but he's been to a bunch of them.
Yeah.
New school fire. The scorecard said we'll take it higher.
Billy, you're up.
Okay. This is about the champ. Muhammad Ali, he's a knockout while traveling on his tour of American bookstores. He's selling his book. So About 5,000 people showed up in Washington, and he sold 700 copies in less than 2 hours. One of the sales clerks says, I'm amazed. When Bob Hope was here, the crowd was so small, we had to push employees through the line so we wouldn't feel embarrassed. And George Jessel came here and didn't sell one book. But Ali was inundated by people, but not all of them were book lovers. One young guy who called himself Shaka Ali fell on his knees before the champ and cried, "You are God!" I pray to God, Ali said, genuinely disturbed. I am not God. I would die for you, a young man said. That's scary, Ali replied. Later, he complained about his public appearances. I'm overexposed, he said. They're cheapening me with all the TV cameras. I'm going to declare a 1-year moratorium on my mouth soon. I don't want to become like some guy you see on every talk show. Don't think he did that last part.
No, he was certainly had the gift of
Gift of gab.
Gift of gab, yeah. The disease took that from him.
Right.
So, we didn't get to see that the last however many years of his life, but he was certainly a character.
Him on social media would have been just unbelievable.
But here's what's interesting. 50 years ago, or 50 years later, if you went up to someone and said, do you know who Bob Hope is? Some people might not know.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got streets. If you ask who George Jessel is, nobody would know.
Nobody knows, yeah.
Right. But if you say Muhammad Ali, if people will know.
Yep. Even now, even younger people nowadays know who Ali is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I mean, he's right up there with like the Babe Ruths.
Yes, that's right.
Jackie Robinson.
He's a cultural icon because he's more than just an athlete.
Yep. Mark, what do you got?
Well, I've got inflation finally hitting the Dodgers. Hard to believe. In 1975, after refusing to change their ticket prices for 18 years, they finally had given in. Yep, they're raising their prices. Box seats are going to go up an entire $1. That means it's going to cost you $4.50 to sit in a box seat at a Dodger game. Mm-hmm. Reserve seats, you better be willing to cough up 50 cents. No, not 50 cents, $3. General admission, 50 cents to $2. And kids under 12, a quarter up from 75 cents to $1. Peter O'Malley said, we're not happy about raising prices, but the computers show that to break even, we would have to get an attendance of 2 million people. Well, Dodgers draw 3-4 million now. That would not be a problem. But those prices, man, if those were the prices they offered today at a Dodger game, oh my God.
We'd have season tickets, all three of us.
Standing line, yeah. There'd be lines standing and, $4.50 for a box seat, count me in.
I mean, my gosh.
I can't even buy a Coke at Dodger Stadium for that.
No,
I think beers are what, $13, $14, something like that?
I know at SoFi they're $18. They're $18.
Well, they had to do it. Widener College, anyone? Every now and then a first magnitude star of pro football comes from an unbelievably obscure college. Take Billy White Shoes Johnson, the rookie of the Houston Oilers. He's from Widener College, which is in Chester, Pennsylvania. You may not have heard of it. I hadn't. But has a fairly good tradition of first-rate football from back in the day. For 6 straight seasons, Pioneer running backs, including White Shoes, led the Mid-Atlantic South Conference in rushing. 4 of them, Johnson, Richie Weaver, Don Watkins, and Jackie Long, a senior this year, have had 2,000 yards rushing in their careers, and all 4 of them wore number 46. Widener coach Bill Manlove says, we were going to retire the uniform number in honor of them, but somebody suggested instead that we try to carry on the greatness of it. So the only thing being retired at Widener is the idea of retiring old number 46. We got to keep that uniform alive, says Manlove. So they've had 2 players drafted in the last 50 years. Center Joe Fields in the 14th round of the draft in 1975, and 7 years later, Tom Deary in the 10th round of the 1982 draft, and neither one wore number 46. So Widener College.
Coach Manlove?
And Manlove, yeah. Okay. That's an unfortunate last name, but probably didn't have that connotation back in the day. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They said it. Let's move on, Billy. Let's get away from that and just segue to
Yes.
Mr.
I
Elliott.
Sorry, just having fun. Elliot Oppenheim, he's the Community College of Baltimore football coach, praising his players after a loss. They have all accepted the responsibilities of football players like men. We got our heads handed to us in the homecoming game, but every one of them showed up at the dance. Oh, yeah.
I bet they did. Yeah.
Yep.
How about that backup quarterback for the Redskins, Mark?
Yeah, the Redskins have had a quarterback named Joe Theismann, later to
Yeah.
be known as Theismann to rhyme with Heisman. But Theismann was a third string quarterback for the Redskins at that time. And what it's like to be a third stringer, it's like when you have three wheels for a bike and you only need two. One has to lean against the wall. Well, here I am. He wouldn't have that problem later on, though. It's interesting that Theismann not is remembered mostly not for all his accomplishments he did on the field, but for having his leg broke by Lawrence Taylor in that horrific tackle.
I've never seen that play.
Well, go watch the beginning
No,
of
I
the
don't
blind
want to.
side.
No,
They
I
go
don't
over
want to.
that play.
I've already seen my leg out. I don't want
Yeah.
to see another one. Yeah,
Okay.
no. Now, was Jurgensen and Kilmer were the quarterbacks ahead of him, I'm assuming?
On the
Wonder
seven,
who the two up of them.
Yeah.
Jurgensen and Kilmer were on the Redskins. I'm trying to think if they were still on the 75 team.
Yeah, I just wonder who was ahead of Joe Theismann.
I'm going to guess you were right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ohio Buckeyes, the 1975 Ohio State-Michigan showdown broke from tradition because it featured an uncharacteristically high-scoring game, 21-14, and aggressive passing from both conservative coaches Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler. Mark, in the fourth quarter, this game really took it up a notch.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Through three quarters, I think 21 points have been scored. I think it was a 14-7 game. And then in the fourth quarter, they had three touchdowns in that quarter alone, with Ohio State coming up on top 21-14. So defensive struggle. And then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, big play after big play. It's kind of like an NFL game today. You watch an NFL game today, a lot of times it's like 10-7 at the half. It might be 10-7 halfway through the third quarter. And the next thing you know, the final score is like 38-35.
Right, like that Giants Broncos game from a couple weeks ago. I think New York led 19-0 going to the fourth, and Denver won what 33-30 or something
They
like
scored
that.
33 points in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
Oh,
but by the way, to answer Billy's question, Theismann was a third stringer. Billy Kilmer was on the team, but it was not Sonny Jurgensen. Randy Johnson was the third quarterback on that team.
Wow,
yeah,
I've never, I mean, other than baseball, I've not heard of that.
Right. Well, he was a flamethrower even then.
Yeah, it
but
must have been.
but I was just going to mention, Ohio State beating Michigan. That put them at 11-0 for the season. I mean, and they were going to go face UCLA in the Rose Bowl, a team they had beaten earlier in the year handily at the Coliseum. And that perfect season went up in smoke at the Rose Bowl.
You don't mess
Courtesy of
with the
John
Bruins.
Shar and company.
yeah. Dick Vermeil had his boys ready to play. Ohio State star Archie Griffin was held to just 46 rushing yards by Michigan's defense, but his leadership and presence helped the Buckeyes to a comeback victory. But Bill, Ohio State had another back that went on to do quite well in the NFL, better than Archie Griffin.
Yeah, and when you talk about Pete Johnson, I honestly think in our last at least 6 episodes, Pete Johnson's been in our show. Pete Johnson, another touchdown. Well, in 1975, he had 989 yards and 24 TDs. Griffin had 4 TDs in 1975. Then they went to the NFL, and believe it or not, Johnson and Griffin played together again with the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you just go by his 8-year career, this is Johnson I'm talking about. He had 5,626 yards, 76 touchdowns. Griffin played 7 years in Cincinnati, little less than 3,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Even though Griffin has obviously the back-to-back Heismans, you could argue that Pete Johnson's career in college, somewhat, and in the NFL for sure, were better than Griffin's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was a load, man. He was a load. So, Billy, this is the 7th time Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler have met up. And after this game, Woody has a 4 wins, 2 losses, 1 tie advantage. How would it end?
Well, Schembechler would come back and win the final 3 games, and he would leave with a 5-4-1 record over Hayes, his former mentor, I guess, or coach, however you want to put it.
Yeah, he played for him. He coached for him.
Yeah,
And,
threw a chair at him.
and then ended up beating him. on the gridiron. Let's talk a little more college football. It's normal in Norman, Oklahoma, okay? In a stunning role reversal, turnover-prone, Oklahoma capitalized on Nebraska's mistakes to win 35-10. They earn a share of the Big 8 title. They're going to go play in the Orange Bowl. And Billy, this was a close game until turnovers really played a factor.
Yeah, Nebraska had 6 of them, 4 fumbles and 2 interceptions, with the Sooners scoring 5 times off those turnovers. It was 10-7 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Nebraska would give up 28 straight points. So it looks like it's a blowout, but you take away some of the turnovers and maybe it's a little bit closer. But no, Oklahoma pulled away at the end.
Oklahoma QB Steve Davis rebounded from earlier struggles to rush for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, saying afterward, we've been in that hole before. Oklahoma, Bill, they don't like to throw the ball.
No, they had 278 yards rushing, and you obviously talked about Davis, really good. But Davis, when he was passing, this is a big stat. 1 for 3 for 18 yards. So I'm not sure how much was that one pass completed for. Yeah.
The fact they threw it, I just want to know if it was a swing pass or a screen.
I just,
throw
but
it
I mean,
downfield.
but what was it, a breakdown? Was there something like they were trying to run the wishbone or whatever,
Right.
the triple option? They go, oh, we missed it, and they threw. I mean, because, Davis is a good runner, but he was a good quarterback to throw as well.
Coach Barry Switzer credited his team's resilience and opportunism, noting the key to the game was our ability to move the ball after the defense got us some good field position. That defense, of course, led by the Selman brothers. Mark, Switzer had only lost 1 time in his coaching career at Oklahoma, so he still hadn't had the coaching aging process yet. You were talking about how young he looked.
Oh my God. He's being carried off the field in this picture. And man, because I always think of the Barry Switzer for the Cowboys, and not that Barry looked old for the Cowboys, but he was a middle-aged guy. And here he just looks like a young guy. Looks like he could get in uniform and suit up and play for them.
Yep. And he would, of course, go on to win the national championship there. And then, did he win 1 Super Bowl with the Cowboys?
Yeah, 1. There was the Steelers game where the Steelers kept turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Switzer, we had a previous guest on, we talked about this. Switzer gave Terry Donahue the greatest gift of all when he finally convinced him to take Troy Aikman off his hands because he had gotten hurt and he had abandoned the passing offense.
Yep. And
Terry, you got to take this guy. He's going to be a star in the NFL.
Troy did okay.
Yeah.
So he went to UCLA.
But that's character to do that,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For real, in a land of make-believe, the LA Rams, derisively nicknamed the Beverly Hills Rams, were battling a reputation for flash and superficiality as they closed in on another playoff berth under owner Carol Rosenblum, GM Don Klosterman, and coach Chuck Knox. Bill, this team had a Hollywood image.
It did. A few things that went over that. Tom Harmon was once a Ram. Bob Hope was once a Ram part owner. Pete Rozelle was once a Rams press agent, and Pat Summerall was once a Rams assistant coach. It's 4 big names there that were part of the Rams.
Absolutely. Despite their Hollywood image, the modern Rams under Knox had become a grounded, disciplined, defense-oriented team, profoundly dull, as the article notes, but consistently winning with records of 12-2, 10-4, and looking at another 12-2 season this year. Mark, how did Rosenblum get the Rams?
Well, this is the greatest story of all time. We mentioned this in the podcast. Dan Reeves owned the Rams. Rosenblum owned the Colts, and they agreed to swap franchises. So, and personnel didn't change. Players on the Rams stayed where they were. Players on the Colts. The only thing is the person that owned the team switched, and that's never heard of. That'd be like the Dodgers calling up the Yankees and saying, "Hey, let's Mark Walters saying I'm going to own the Yankees now, and Steinbrenner, you come and own the Dodgers." It's just never heard of. And the only thing that ever came close to that, the USFL, the Chicago Blitz and the Arizona Wranglers swapped franchises one year. So the Wranglers became the Blitz became the Wranglers. But that's the only time I've ever heard of that.
And imagine, giving up, the Baltimore market versus the LA market, that's just insane. Hey, Billy, they're talking about how profoundly dull the Rams were, and that's kind of the way their head coach likes it.
Yeah, ground chuck is what they used to call him. He was 54-15 as the Rams coach. He won the division every year, lost in the playoffs each year, and they fired him.
Chuck Knox said, I'll tell you what's dull, losing.
Yeah.
All right, this is our college basketball preview with John Wooden retired. UCLA entered a new era under Gene Bartow, immediately facing top-ranked Indiana in a season-opening showdown that could be a possible preview for the national championship rematch. One of the best players, however, in the nation was Maryland's John Lucas, the point guard for the Terrapins. He's a spark plug. He's also a rare two-sport athlete in that he's an elite tennis player, an ACC singles champion with a 64-25 record. Good enough that Arthur Ashe said he could make a good living in tennis if he trained more. But nope, he would stick to basketball. And Billy, him and another guy who was a guest of ours on the Past Our Prime podcast, they had some pretty good games against each other in the ACC.
This is where it goes back to. We all know Phil Ford was on our show. But this is when he played against Lucas in high school. Lucas was a heavily publicized senior, Ford just a sophomore, whose reputation still not that big. But the younger man, Ford, outplayed Lucas during the first quarter. So he says, "Come on, All-American, you can't play," Ford taunted. "Young man, I'll teach you the game of basketball," replied Lucas. Lucas went on to score 57 points in that game, and later that year broke Pete Maravich's state high school scoring record. Don't put, whatever, punch the bear. What is it? Don't, something.
Poke the bear.
Poke the bear. That's it.
Yeah.
He did.
Great player. Obviously, John Lucas went on to be the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, and then had a good NBA career that was definitely troubled because he had a lot of issues with drugs. But when he played, he was a dynamo.
And Maryland might have been actually even better than they were if Moses Malone had actually stayed at Maryland instead of going pro.
Oh, you think?
Because he was there for a week.
Yeah. Instead, he went to a league that then folded.
Yes. Was it Utah that he went to?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Utah Stars. Indiana coach Bob Knight's team entered the 75-76 season as a near powerhouse that had no weaknesses, holding closed practices, returning 4 future first-round draft picks. They had great defense, unselfish offense, senior leadership. Despite losing only 2 key players, the Hoosiers' depth, and one of those players was our another guest of ours, John Laskowski. Boy, that's becoming more and more often where we have someone who
isn't it great?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Great. Every time I read these magazines, one of the guys has been on, or women.
Anyway, they're the favorites to capture the title. Marquette coach Al McGuire says Indiana has the best team with the best players and the best coach. One thing that to me exemplifies the 1975-76 Indiana Hoosiers more than anything is that despite a loaded roster, Coach Knight was able to mold them into a completely unselfish team. And that holds true 50 years later. Kent Benson is on the cover of this issue. He's a 2-time All-American, the #1 overall pick in the NBA in the 1977 NBA draft by the Milwaukee Bucks. And yet when I reached out to him to come on the show, he goes, "Hey, can I get my teammate Bobby Wilkerson to come on with me?" Still sharing the spotlight with his teammates and friends all these years later. It's actually quite heartwarming. Wilkerson, no slouch by any means, also a first-round draft pick in the NBA by Seattle. He played 7 years in the association, and both Bobby Wilkerson and Kent Benson join us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, Scott. Thank you so much. We're blessed and honored to be a part of your show here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Kent, December 1st, 1975. There you are on the cover of Sports Illustrated. What do you remember about that time, and what was it like to be on the cover of SI when SI back then meant so much?
Well, it was a wow factor because, as a kid growing up, especially in high school and all, saw Sports Illustrated and the covers, and never thought or dreamed of being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And when that happened, it was definitely a tremendous honor and a blessing. And I give all the credit to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for allowing me the opportunity to play this great game of basketball and to have people surrounded me that helped make me a better player, a better person, a better Christian.
Bobby, last year we had John Laskowski, a teammate of yours in the on the 75 team, and he was on the cover of SI. Coach Knight wasn't too thrilled about that, according to John. Do you recall how Coach reacted to Kent being on the cover? And what about you guys? Do you guys kind of give him a little bit of the business?
No, not really. We were just excited for him because, we know that he was coming into his own, and Kent was doing some great work. He's probably the greatest IU center that ever played there, and based on his accomplishments and his talent. And so we were happy, because it was never personal. It's like there was no jealousies. It was like we lift him up, and we just keep it moving, because that's the way we were taught to come together as a team. And we've always lifted each other up, and it makes no difference who was on the front or who was on the back or who wasn't in there. We still had that camaraderie.
Absolutely.
So speaking of the cover of Sports Illustrated, Kent, there's the shot of you're grabbing a rebound, and your muscles are bulging, but the expression on your face is just scary. Was intimidation a big part of that Indiana team and why you were so successful?
I wouldn't say intimidation. I'd just say the fact that we were very confident and knew our roles, played our roles. And, one of the things that really was probably the most impressive thing about our team was my teammate here and one of my best friends in life, Bobby Wilkerson, his versatility. He was able to play all 5 positions and knew every one of the 5 positions offensively and defensively. And he did more than hold his own in that regard. So our team, like Bobby said, one of the things that I think speaks highly of our team, when you talk about a team, you talk about being able to bring a group of talented individuals together who use their God-given talents and abilities, and at the same time put aside their own personal agendas, knowing that when the team wins, everybody wins. And I think that's our whole mentality, is that we each knew what our role was. We played our roles, but if we had a bad game or things weren't going our way, someone else would pick up the slack. And like Bobby said, it wasn't about individuals' performances. We knew what our jobs were. We went out and did them. And then if someone had a slack night, somebody else picked up the slack. And that's so important to have that as a successful team. And we proved that night in and night out.
So this is for both of you. How important was that first game? You play UCLA at a neutral site in St. Louis, and you beat them by 20. And then later in the semifinals, you beat them again by 14. But how important was it to set the stage for the season? We're going to beat the defending champions, and we're going to serve notice that we are the best team in the country.
Well, for me, it was, I waited all summer to get a hold of them. Because they did win the year before, and we wanted to show them that we're coming to take care of business, and we take it one game at a time. And they had they can read all the clippings and listen to the news all they want, but when they hit St. Louis, it was on. We went right at them, and I think they tried to say that the floor was slippery. Well, it was slippery for both of us. Yeah. Our team too, but we still played, and I enjoyed it because they're very competitive. They're a great team, but we had a greater team because we came together, and it made a difference.
Here's what I want to know. We're going to go back just a second before we get to the games that Mark was talking about. How did you two meet? Because you sure seem like you have just an amazing brotherly bond.
Well, thank you. Let me back up, and I'd like to add to Bobby's comments there. The start of our season, of course, we ended the season before 31-1, got beat by Kentucky 92-90. but individually and collectively, we came back and we had one thing in mind, and that was to go undefeated and win a national championship. But our season started out in 75-76 season, playing the two best teams in the world. Number one, the UCLA Bruins, who were defending national champions. And our number two game, which nobody really ever talks about much, is the world champion Russians. And we beat them handily. So our first two games were started out, we weren't playing Sister Mary of the Blind or some high school or something like that. I mean, padding our schedule. We wanted to play the best that were out there because we wanted to prove to everyone that we were the best, not only in the country, but in the world.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Kent. My apologies.
No, that's fine.
I just want to know, you guys have a special friendship, you and Bobby. How did that come about?
I think it came about because we grew up, playing against each other, and Indiana basketball is totally different than anywhere in the country at that time. There was no class basketball. It was all, everybody get a shot. No matter if you could make it to the tournament, it's David and Goliath. It didn't matter. And so me and Ken had the chance to play, and I really liked him because he was so big. I was like, oh my God! I said I'm gonna have to run a lot these games, and because if he get me down in that low post, I'm done. And so, but I realized that he was going to be a great player. But I love the fact that when he came to IU, I was the happiest guy there. Somebody from Indiana. And plus he was what we needed. And I knew how to, after nine he got on me for my sophomore year, and Kent came, and Kent took all that off me. So I was so happy. And so we worked together well because we were on a mission. And I thank God that Kent did come there, and I'm from Anderson, he's from Newcastle, and it's just something about Indiana basketball at that time. There was a lot of great players, but everybody who say they could play for Coach Knight could not have done it.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm not interrupting anymore. So I was holding there for a second. There, sorry, I wasn't just in some other little world. So you take on Russia, you beat the Beloff boys, then you take on UCLA, you beat them. Is that about the time, or was it when you played Kentucky and a little bit more in the season that you knew you had something special this year, or in 75, 76?
Well, we knew we had something special in 75, and we believe we should have won that national championship as well, had it not been for our teammate Scott May getting injured. We were a great team, and Scott was very instrumental in being a part of that team. And when you lose your leading scorer and a guy that was so important to the team as a whole, it just made us click. And yeah, Kentucky was a great team. There's no doubt about it. But that kind of set the fire under us to make sure that we needed to do individually and collectively what we needed to do from the end of that game to the beginning of the next season. Preparing ourselves individually and collectively for the task at hand. And, in the locker room after our championship game with Michigan, it was amazing. Of course, Bobby had gotten injured the first few minutes of the game and was carried off unconscious off the floor. We went into the locker room against Michigan, 6 points down. And the first thing that Coach Knight knew that we needed to know was that Bobby was okay, because we had deja vu of Scott being injured the year before and everything, but more importantly, Bobby's health and well-being. And he said, boys, Bobby's resting comfortably at the hospital. He's under observation and everything. He's going to be okay. And he knew we needed to know that first thing. Of course, with a few more instructions, whatever, he said, in the next 20 minutes, boys, you have an opportunity to make history. And at the time, we never thought that of being prophetic, but 50 years later here, you look back and see how prophetic that was. But our concern was for the health and well-being of our teammate.
Coach Knight was a master at having you guys take it one game at a time. We're not looking ahead. We're just focusing on the team right in front of us. But at some point, I mean, you guys are teenagers or young, just in your 20s maybe. At some point, are you guys looking around going, we got a chance to go undefeated?
No, I don't. We never took that attitude because we knew that we had been trained, with Coach Knight individually and collectively, that he wanted perfection, and that's why when we practiced, it was a madhouse because the second team was probably some of our toughest talent was on the second team because every day at practice they would come at us, and it was just like a war. And most of our games were easier than our practice because they had prepared us. And Coach Knight had prepared us. And so we took it one game at a time because we knew everywhere we went, they booed us. Everywhere. They talked about our red and white pants, pinstripe pants. But that's okay because at the end of the day, we took it to them, and they weren't laughing at the end of the game. They might laugh at the beginning, but they wasn't laughing at the end. And so, and then we move on to the next game, And so that's the attitude that we have. And it wasn't about whoever needed to step up. Whatever I needed to do at any position, Coach Knight would just let me know, and I got it. Whether it's defending, whether it's rebounding. And it was a personal thing for me because my whole philosophy has always been when I got there, the more I'm on the floor, the more I can be seen by everybody else. I just have to be on the floor. So it's about being obedient to what he was saying in the scouting team and the scouting reports, knowing every player. I knew every player and what they could do and what they couldn't do. And but it was an individual work that I had to do to help the team. Because everybody had deficiencies, and so I just tried to pick up the slack wherever I was needed. And a lot of times I see where it was needed. And one thing I didn't do is look over at Coach Knight during the game, and I never ran over there to talk to him. He had to talk time out to talk to me because I'm not looking over there. I might throw the ball away, but I'm running back down or picking up full court. So I'm not going to take that route.
One of the things about Bobby that people don't know and understand, he just covered this year, is not only was he a tremendous talent athletically, but his basketball IQ, his intelligence on the basketball floor from all five positions was off the charts. I mean, he observed everything. He took instructions from Coach Knight. He played within the game plan that Coach Knight had. We complimented each other. He complimented us. And we knew that when Bobby was on the floor, that we were in great hands because with me playing in the front court like that, I knew the back court, Bobby and Quinn, especially Bobby, if anybody would happen to get past him defensively, I was there. But that didn't happen very often because they would not let that happen.
Bobby has his reputation. When people think of Bobby Knight, they just think of like tossing chairs, an angry person. They don't really see the other side of him. Can you talk about maybe a softer side that people weren't aware of?
Yeah, we saw both sides, but the soft side we saw was as we matured and he's seen that we were being obedient to what he wanted done. It was different. He would pull us to the side, and we got to see that soft side. Not very often, but when we got to see it, he would compliment the team. Or everybody every dog has their day. Well, we all had 2 or 3 days, and it's not because of what you did. Because sometimes he just felt like, okay, Scott's getting a little too big, or Wilkerson, he had a good game, and so he'd break you down. So you to make you know that you got to get right back to work. There's something you can work on. There's always something we could get better on as a team, as individuals. And so his soft side was, individually. He would take the time, to talk to us about what we're doing on the court. And then when he started complimenting all of us, we got scared because we knew, so, okay, he complimenting us, so that means the wrath is coming. So we didn't know who's going to be next. But that was a good thing.
One of the things that people don't know and understand about Coach was the fact that he was very knowledgeable about us as players. As he recruited us, he knew our potential, and he knew what would motivate us to play to our potential. And that was one of the things that he always talked about as for us to play to our potential. And when we weren't playing to our potential, either in practice or in a game, he would do whatever he had to do to motivate us to understand that our potential and all is so much greater than what we ourselves knew. And so he would do whatever it would take. And he was very understanding, and he knew that he could push us so far to a point that when we got to that point, he knew he had to back off and give us some kudos or have an ice cream social on the floor, just to break up the monotony of everything. Because our practices were so intense, like Bobby said, and our second team was they were probably the toughest team that we ever had to play against because they knew our offense, they knew our defense and everything. So they made us better, and we're so thankful for that because every game that we did play, not that it necessarily was a piece of cake, but it was a whole lot easier than what it was in practice, that's for sure.
I'm trying to picture in my head all you guys with Bobby Knight having an ice cream social. It's a little hard to imagine. But you just mentioned close games, and everyone thinks that perfect season, you just blew everybody out. But that's not the case. You needed overtime to beat Kentucky. You won, I think, by 3 at Ohio State. In fact, in the Sweet 16, I think you only beat Alabama by 5. So there were these close games. What were the difference in winning those close games? Was it Knight? Was it something just the team chemistry?
It was a team chemistry because when we went into the games, most of the time, teams we would play at halftime, they would be celebrating like they had won. And we knew that the game was, 40 minutes. And so what we would do is go to the locker room, make his changes, and we come out because he always taught us, first 5 minutes of the second half will determine whether you win or lose. And so we knew that we had to attack the first 5 minutes of the second half and take it from there because we took over games right after halftime. And the other teams were celebrating. They'd be up at halftime sometime, and they would celebrate and have the band playing. And, that sounds good. But at the end of the day, we make our adjustments, and we're ready to go for 40 minutes. Most of the other teams are ready to go for 20. And so we put a dedication in, and it was confidence. We had confidence in what we were doing, and our teammates, we knew how to make it work, and we executed. And the execution is what made the difference.
And so you get Michigan in the final game. You had already played them twice in the year and beat them, obviously. How tough is it to take on a team for a third time? They know you, you know them.
Well, the press and the media were always talking about, well, you might beat Michigan twice, but you'll never beat them a third time. And, and Michigan, no doubt, was definitely a tough team, one of the toughest teams that we played. But we knew we were mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared to play them. We knew their offense, knew their defense. But Bobby talked about the execution. We went out and executed our offense. We went out and executed our defense, played together as a team, TEAM, not individually or anything like that. We played together as a team. And like I said before, when you put aside your own personal agendas for the success of the team, knowing that when the team wins, everybody wins, that was our mindset. We knew that all we had to do was to go out and play to our potential and execute our offense and defense, and the rest would take care of itself. And we're just we were prepared. we were always prepared for the game plan that Coach Knight had put together for us with the scouting and everything, and we just executed.
So I know, Bob, you touched on it a little bit, the concussion you suffered in the first half. What do you remember about that moment? And have teammates told you what you don't remember? And how tough was it, Kent, just to see him on the court in that position?
Well, I don't remember a lot. The only thing I remember was being in the hospital, and Coach Knight and John Havlicek came in there, and the nurse told him that I wouldn't let nobody take off my uniform. And I was laying in, and I lifted up and asked him, did we win? And that was it. And he said, yeah, and that was it. So it was hard, but, because, everybody had left and went back. And so I felt some kind of way because I didn't get to finish the game. And there's a lot of thoughts going in my head. But at the same time, I was so glad that we won. But it was a difference. It took me some years to get over that because the celebration and everybody, I missed all the fun. But I'm going to get it all back now since we're celebrating 50 years. So I'm going to enjoy every day of it to make up for it, the teammates. But it was a difference. And I'm glad that my teammates rose to the occasions. And it was just such a blessing.
And from my perspective, both Bobby and I being devout Christian men, my first thoughts and all were to pray for Bobby and his health and well-being. And I was so blessed to know that when we came into the locker room that Bobby was okay. When you have that happen and I think it was like first 3 minutes of the game when this occurred, and to have to play the remaining part of that half going into the locker room. Even though we were hanging in there, we were 6 points down. We just knew that our teammate had to be okay, and once we knew that he was okay, we could really focus on the task at hand. And like Bobby said, we come out in the second half of our games, and it was a totally different game. And I remember hearing several times that it was one of the most perfect halves of a game of basketball that was played. And it's exciting to be a part of that, and the history. As we go back 50 years now, and reminisce of all the wonderful things that happened. We're just so glad that now, after 50 years, we're going to have an opportunity to celebrate a huge historic event that will, in perpetuity, with the atmosphere of college athletics right now, with the NIL and transfer portal. Chances are that record will never be broken, and definitely in 50 years we won't be around to see it, but if it were to happen. But records are made to be broken, but we believe that this thing will carry on in perpetuity.
Yeah, the last team to go undefeated in college hoops was the 75-76 Indiana Hoosiers, and 50 years later, teammates and friends Kent Benson and Bobby Wilkerson are together again as the team from Bloomington is being honored throughout the season. Bobby, what are some of the things that are planned that you're looking forward to commemorate that perfect season?
Well, we're planning a lot of things. The university is planning a lot of things that need our participation as far as the basketball games, and the NCAA tournament, is in Indiana this year. So we plan on being there. So there's so much, and the stuff that me and Kent are setting up to do prayer breakfasts and speaking engagements and dealing with young people, and because there's so much individualism in college sports and high school sports now, where everybody thinks they're going pro and they get mad if they can't be coached and they go to another team, and a lot of this is for the money, which that's a blessing. At the end of the day, you got to have some loyalties. If you're going to be there, if you really want to win, you stay together. But we're in a different time now. Back then we stayed together, and that made the difference. So I think the events that the university is holding, and we just want to invite everybody. I mean, all the IU Nation, all the IU alumni, everybody from every different walks of life, because this is going to be something very, very special. And I don't want anyone to miss out on it, because the participation, just to be part of a 50-year reunion. Most people, I think the Miami Dolphins, they celebrate by smoking a cigar and having champagne every year, but that's not what we do. We want to make sure that we just reminisce all the players, those who have passed away, Mark Haymore and
Wayne
Radford, and also Coach Knight. They're still beloved and in our hearts because we knew them and they meant a lot to us. So, it's celebrating them and their lives and us coming together, and the fact that God has blessed us to still be here and to be part of this is such a. So it's exciting. Whatever we do, we're going to show up and really enjoy it, because our families, because a lot of my family has passed, but my family that is still around, they're excited about it. And so we want everyone to just come on board and participate, because of the fans. We have the greatest fans in the world. IU fans are just awesome. So I want to give them a shout out.
Coach Knight had such a larger-than-life presence. How much will he be missed by not being able to be with you guys? And I'm sure both of you being Christian, he'll be with you in spirit, but it will be odd to see that team without Coach Knight.
Well, there's no doubt that Coach Knight was, of course, instrumental in our successes and putting together the teams that he put together for us, and the things that we've accomplished over the years and all. And we're going to recognize him, of course, and honor him because he's part of our team. But at the same time, we're going to. Bobby and I have been so blessed over the years to be a part of mentoring these youth basketball camps, doing community life events, improving everyone's, how should I say, their sportsmanship, their understanding of being the best that they can be, striving for excellence. And one of the things that, we talk about too, and that I like to talk about is in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10, it says, whatever thy hand finds to do it with all thy might. And Bob and I have been put in situations as examples. And in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 6 through 16, it talks about being a good Christian example by the way you walk, the way you talk, the things that people are observing. And we've been blessed with the talents and the abilities to play the game of basketball, being recognized by our success at Indiana University and in college basketball. And we've taken that very seriously and want to continue, even after 50 years, to support those types of things. Bobby and I have been involved in different businesses and what have you. We're executives in water transit solutions, bringing bottled water and bulk water to different communities that is in great need. So with all the things that we have planned, that Bobby mentioned, golf outings, alumni association, Indiana University worldwide has close to 1 million alums across the world. That's pretty amazing. And we want the Hoosier Nation all across the world to experience the wonderful opportunity that after 50 years, tremendous support, they're going to be recognized as well. We'll have merchandise and different events that will address the 50th celebration. And again, it'll be in perpetuity.
You get to go back and celebrate. Does your family, this is for both of you, do your family, your kids know how amazing, not just as individual basketball players, but as champions and teammates, and how to actually get a team to win, and how wonderful you two are?
Yeah, I have a big family. I grew up with 13, in my family. There's 8 boys and 5 girls. But at the end of the day, I grew up with teamwork, knowing how, we might not have had all we wanted, but we had all we needed. My mother and father made sure we had love. We had, a lot of times we didn't have a lot of food, but we ate. They always provided. And that's what touched my heart, because at the end of the day, I know what it's like to go without. But we still had that love, and my mother and father still provided such a big family. And I've seen the love over the years when I was in college, when growing up, the support of the family unit. And so they realized, and they really realized. I have some family members come and do some interviews in Bloomington, and I think seeing it now, being part of this, it just opened their eyes even more to be able to be part of it. This is my uncle, this is my brother, and to realize that not only did we give back to the family, but we brought them on board too, they're part of all this. I couldn't have did it without them. So I just thank God that my family was a big part of my life, and through the good times and the bad. Because a lot of times, I wanted to go home, but I remember I said, I'm not going to let Coach Knight put me on the bus and send me home. I'm getting my grades. And so I made sure that I took care of business down there. And then I was able to lift up my whole family to be appreciative and just love IU and love what we accomplished. And my family knows Kent very well, and we all get together. We have a good time. And so I thank God for that. But it was work, and teamwork starts at home. It started at home when I was growing up. And it wasn't about what you have, but it was about the love and the teaching that my mother and father provided for me. And I have 6 older brothers, and I did not get out of line, with 6 of them. That was not going to be good. But they didn't have to correct me. They just wanted me to stay home instead of playing ball all night and whatever. But at the end of the day, they supported me.
And I was very blessed to have a family that was very supportive of me as well. And they attended all my games, drove hours and stayed up all night long to get home in time to go back to work and a couple hours later. And they attended all the games and were very supportive in that regard. And, one of the things that Bobby and I really wanted to do, and we're in the process of it already. We're starting. We had already had our first filming of our documentary, where we had family and friends. But we're not only having family and friends, but also major IU dignitaries, and we're also reaching out to our assistant coaches and basketball managers. We're wanting to include a lot of people. But we're reaching out to some of our former teammates or team opponents, like Bruce Parkinson at Purdue and Tim Kuzma at Michigan, Phil Hubbard at Michigan, Steve Grody at Michigan, Rick Roby at Kentucky, Marcus Johnson at UCLA. We've got several different former players that we played against that have agreed to be a part of our documentary. And we're really excited and blessed about that, because we feel that this documentary is going to be off the charts, and people are going to be excited to find out about that.
Indiana basketball has such a rich tradition. There were 2 championship teams before you guys won, and then 2 after you guys won. And I know you weren't around for 1940 and 53's games, but watching in the 80s when Isaiah Thomas led them to a title and then Steve Alford led them to a title, how much pride did you have to see the tradition carry on?
Well, I'm going to take this question here, because of the 5 national championships that Indiana University has, the 40, the 53, our 76, the 81, and 87, 4 of those 5 teams have players from my hometown. 1940 was Vernon Huffman, 1953 was Jack Rabbit Wright, I was in 76. We skipped 81 because that was Isaiah Thomas's year. And then 87, Steve Alford, who was from Newcastle as well. And, the tradition that Indiana basketball has, after Coach Knight had left and all, for about 25 years or so, it took a hit. And I think now we're starting to get back into the realization that Indiana basketball is still prominent and can be a contender. And of course, that also goes to the to the excitement that Kurt Signetti has created with the IU football team. And from another perspective, to answer part of that question about family, I've been blessed to have a daughter, my youngest daughter. I have 4 daughters, and all played college basketball or volleyball. But my youngest daughter, Ashley, came to Indiana University and was a 2-time All-American volleyball player at IU here. And so my daughters have been very competitive and have grown up in the Indiana University background, knowing that IU is so important to our family and what have you. So it's really been a blessing to share that with family and friends, and such a time as this, 50 years later, to be able to celebrate with family and friends and former teammate opponents.
So we do a segment here, a trivia segment called 50-50, where I'm going to give you guys a 50% chance of getting this trivia question right. And you can put your brains together and see if you can answer this question. But we're going to go back to the movie Blue Chips, which of course featured the fictional Western University. They might have just called them UCLA, but they're called Western University. And they play Bobby Knight in Indiana in the championship. And in the movie, Western prevails. Of course, they had Shaq, it's unfair. But true or false, they actually, when they shot the games for the movie, it was Indiana that won those games.
True.
You are absolutely correct. They basically played 2 pickup games, and Coach Knight didn't want to lose. So basically, they won both pickup games, but they pieced the 2 games together and made it look like the fictional Western University won. So Indiana did actually prevail in that.
Of course.
I knew you'd say that in unison.
Of course.
But let me ask, do you ever look back? I know we always look back in our life and have different instances where we like to look back and enjoy it. You guys finished 32-0 in the 75-76 season. How does that feel looking back at that nowadays? No one's ever done that.
Actually, it was 33-0 because they don't count the Russian game.
Yep.
And I still to this day don't understand that. We were 33-0. I mean, when you beat the world champions, how can you not include that in your record? But here nor there, as we look back, it's just I believe that Bobby and I, in this particular situation, and our teammates were all destined to be a part of that. That God had plans for us, prepared us for that day, that year, to accomplish that. And here we are, 50 years later, still a part of, and still the last undefeated team in college basketball history. So I believe in divine intervention, divine appointment, and I believe that it was a divine appointment that we be a part of that.
Bobby, when you and the guys get together all these years later, what's it like?
It's a lot of fun because we can reminisce and get to know each other's families at such a time as this, and it's such a blessing because like I said, my family is so big, and my family, they've been knowing Kent from high school, so they know him. So it's always like we always have a reunion, and especially the fact that we are from Indiana. And that makes, to me, it makes a big difference. Is the way we grew up, and basketball was more of a team sport, you know, and we learned that way. You know, it's not an individual sport. So looking back, it makes a big difference when we get together and we can laugh about certain things. And it's all about college. You know, NBA was just the NBA. You know, it was a job, and we were blessed to have that. But college was the friendships that last for a lifetime. And so I thank God for those friendships, you know, playing with Scott and Quinn and Wayne Radford and Mark Haymore and Tom Abernathy. So, you know, we're all joined together at the hip, no matter where they're at in life and what they're doing. This is an opportunity for all of us to get together and, you know, and everybody have things going on. But I pray that their health is good, and to be part of this, it makes a big difference to me. I enjoy being around all the guys and all the former players, and it's just such a blessing.
Perfection. It doesn't happen often, not in anything. And in college hoops, it hasn't happened in half a century. The last team to do it, the Indiana Hoosiers, Kent Benson and Bobby Wilkerson, two very proud members of that perfect team. Thank you both for joining us today on a perfect episode of Past Our Prime. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mark. And may God bless you and your listeners, and go Hoosiers.
You got it.
You know, the thing I've noticed though, Scott, is remember we had Phil Ford on?
Yeah.
And Phil Ford focused on teamwork and North Carolina, just how they all came together. It seems like the basketball guys have an understanding that teams win, because Phil Ford is the exact same way. Anytime he talked to Kent or talked to Bobby, they brought it back to the team, not I did this or I did that. It's just a wonderful thing that in basketball, it truly is a team. It just is the way they always brought it back to each other and the rest of the team, that's how they won. It's just a wonderful thing, just what Phil Ford did.
Yep. And I think that great coaches do that. Everyone checks their egos at the door, and they all buy in that there's one goal. There's not 5 individual goals. There's one goal: winning. Under new coach Gene Bartow, UCLA entered the post-John Wooden era with a modernized style, allowing more individual freedom on the floor while maintaining that Bruins discipline and depth that made them a powerhouse. Led by stars Richard Washington, Marcus Johnson, and Andre McCarter, plus a bench with elite freshmen like David Greenwood, UCLA was still totally motivated. Now, Mark, I know Richard Washington, I know Marcus Johnson, and I know David Greenwood, but refresh me, Andre McCarter?
Yeah, he was a guard. He was one of the Philadelphia guards. UCLA had a history with that. Walt Hazard, Andre McCarter, Pooh Richardson. And you know, he was one of the glue guys there on the team. He ended up having a cup of coffee in the NBA. He was a 6th round pick of the Kansas City Kings. Yeah, back then the NBA had that many rounds, 89th overall. And then he ended up playing like in you know, not in the NBA, and did eventually land back with the Washington Bullets in the early 80s, but didn't really have a pro career. But as a college player, he was a good glue guy to have on your team.
Coach Wooden was the master. He proved his greatness. Now we have to prove ours, said McCarter going into the season. They did, you know, I mean, unfortunately, the Bruins were at this time measured only about winning championships, but this was a very good team, Mark, and they would get to the Final Four.
Right. In fact, if it wasn't for Indiana, maybe they win a title under Bartow. I mean, they opened the season against Indiana at a neutral site and got blown out by 20. And then they meet again in the Final Four and they lose by 14. So again, neither of the games were close. But UCLA was a really good team. It's just Indiana was superior. And the Indiana thing, and as mentioned in the interview with Kent Benson, is that, you know, they played a bunch of close games that year. It wasn't like they steamrolled everybody. They had an overtime game. They had some narrow victories. So it wasn't just, they had to earn all those wins for a perfect season.
Billy, tell me about some of these other teams that are going to be contenders for the championship. Tell me about Marquette.
Well, they had Butch Lee and Bo Ellis, who would actually win the title coming up in 1977. And I say that just because those are the guys that actually got my love for college basketball. So I remember watching the final game and I thought, man, I think they upset North Carolina that year. And I just remember thinking, those guys are great. And then there's also USF, which is number 6. They got Bill Cartwright. They're bringing him on to the Dons team. And I think that's the first time they've actually been that highly ranked since Bill Russell was there. And I don't think they've been that highly ranked since.
Yeah.
Bill Cartwright, another guest on our show.
Yep.
I can't recall. I think the last guy that went from USF to the pros, do you guys remember Quentin Daly?
Yeah, very much. He had a lot of issues, but yeah.
Maryland's Lefty Driesell facing life after Tom McMillan and Len Elmore. But as we said, he's got John Lucas. North Carolina State's just 2 years removed from winning it all, but they don't have David Thompson anymore, or Monty Tao, or Tom
Burleson.
Tom Burleson. Thank you very much. And then how about this? Out in Las Vegas, UNLV has Jerry Tarkanian's Running Rebels, the new darlings of the desert. They're scoring at lightning speed, and that program is about to become a major powerhouse.
Yeah, who did they add this year? They added Reggie Theus.
Whew, golly.
God, he was a great player.
Yeah.
Yeah, great score. That's how that, I thought, man, add that guy. I mean, looking back now, you know how great he was. Back then, he's just Reggie Theus.
So those are the teams that are contending for the national championship. Mark, tell us about a couple teams with some big guys that are not going to challenge.
Well, the Centenary, which I'll give you $100 if you can tell me where that's located. Anyway, they have a center who you might have heard of. His name is Robert Parrish, especially if you're a Celtics fan. The other big 7-footer was a player on Clemson. I just loved his name, Tree Rollins. I mean, I assume he got it because he was big as a tree.
Yeah.
But their schools are on probation, so they have no chance. But Centenary had won 65 of 81 games since Parrish arrived there. So he
Tree
made a
Rollins
difference.
once bit Danny Ainge.
And those great Celtic teams he was on,
Yeah, Billy, say that again.
Tree Rollins once bit Danny Ainge in a fight.
Yep. And I remember the headline, Tree Bites Human.
So if Ainge had bitten Rollins, would there be, instead of blood, sap coming out of him?
Yeah, or bark. Yep.
His bark is worse than his bite.
And then, of course, Robert Parrish is involved in possibly the worst NBA trade of all time. When the Warriors send him and the number 3 overall pick for the number 1 overall pick. So the Warriors take Joe Barry Carroll. The Celtics take Kevin McHale. So the Warriors traded Parrish and McHale for Joe Barry Carroll.
Remember his nickname, Scott?
Joe barely cares.
It's a terrible nickname, but yeah, they said.
So a guy by the name of John Thompson is building a nice program at Georgetown, which is in the District of Columbia. 25 and 27 his first 2 seasons with the Hoyas. He would guide them to the national NCAA tournament here in the 75-76 season. They would become a powerhouse and win it all in 1984 with Patrick Ewing. So those Hoyas teams became, Big East basketball was literally, Big Monday was the ultimate must-see TV for me when I was a high schooler. College football, Kansas exploded 626 total yards rushing in a 42-24 rout of Missouri. Halfback Laverne Smith ran wild, 236 yards and 2 long touchdowns. How about this? Dennis Wright, the Kansas fullback, said, "After I got by the line of scrimmage, I had to look for people to tackle me." Minnesota quarterback Tony Dungy tied a Big Ten record with his 13th touchdown pass of the season in a 24-3 win over Wisconsin. So Tony Dungy, think of that, 13 touchdown passes is a Big Ten record.
Wow.
Hey, Billy, what jumped out at you?
In the East, Pittsburgh Panther kicker Carson Long missed his first PAT in 60 tries. Then in the same game, he also missed 3 more field goals. But on a good note, he did have a daughter the morning of the game, and just to let everybody know, she's 50 now.
Good thing you didn't shank that.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
50 and a mother of 4.
Yep.
How about this one?
This show, she's a baby.
How about this one? Colorado's Billy Waddy opened the game with a 100-yard kickoff return as the Buffaloes cruised past Kansas State. Now, Mark, didn't he have a big touchdown for the Rams against the Cowboys the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl?
Why do you have to bring up painful memories?
Vince Ferragamo threw that ball. There was about 6 Cowboys all around it, and he hits Waddy in stride for about a 50-yard touchdown with 2 minutes to go, and they win it 21-19. So I did that just for you. Mark, tell me something.
I went crying. I went to bed crying. Thanks a lot.
Let's see. That would have been 1979. You were 20. You were not crying.
How do you know? I might be a very sensitive person.
Stanford lost to Cal, Mark, in the big game. How come?
Yeah, and this was 7 years before the miracle, the miracle kickoff return, So that's when Stanford really had something to cry about. But in this game, Stanford's head coach, Jack Christensen, said, "We dug our own grave because of bad punts." Well, they lost to Cal 48-15. I don't think bad punts was their biggest problem in that game. I think it was more like Chuck Muncie.
Yeah, Bill Muncie, guy on our cover from last week. He had a pretty good game.
He did. He scored 3 touchdowns, got 166 yards. He also caught 3 more passes and even threw a 46-yard touchdown pass. Yeah, man, that Muncie could do it all.
Yeah, I was telling you guys the other day that in the NFL, Muncie threw 4 passes in his NFL career, all 4 for touchdowns, 3 of them to Wes Chandler. I mean, that is the perfect quarterback rating if there ever was one.
It is.
Yeah. How about this? Speaking of Stanford, Toledo quarterback Gene Swick broke Jim Plunkett's all-time NCAA total offense record, accounting for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 33-28 victory over Kent State. And what about your boy Herb Lusk, Mark?
Oh, yes, at Long Beach State. And man, it is so sad they don't have a football program anymore because they had some exciting players go through their system, Terry Metcalf. But anyway, Herb Lusk, who we talked about, had a great game against San Diego State. He ran for 183 yards, had a 66-yard touchdown run, and the 49ers defeated the Aztecs 21-17. So Herb was a talented guy.
He really was. Yeah. It's not just sad that Long Beach State doesn't have a football team. It's kind of weird.
Yep.
It's
You
weird.
figure in
I think it was a money
California, they have
thing.
one now, and they'd have a lot of kids to choose from.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the last kind of notable coach at Long Beach State was?
George Allen?
Yep, George Allen.
All right, let's pivot here. Talk a little boxing. 11 Soviet heavyweight boxers toured the U.S. for a 1-week, 3-city series facing an American team that was often hastily assembled and badly outnumbered in talent and experience. But there's one that was really interesting. In Cincinnati, the U.S. team's shortage of fighters led officials to recruit a guy named Floyd Jumbo Cummings, a 238-pound inmate from an Illinois prison who won his match before going back to his cell. Now listen to this. Cummings served 12 years in prison for murder in the Stateville Correctional. I want to fight that guy. in the Stateville Correctional Center. Upon his release, in 1979, he started boxing at the age of 29. In the early 80s, he lost decisions to Tim Witherspoon, Ronaldo Snipes, and Mitch Blood Green. Get this, he ends his career with a record of 15 wins, 6 losses, and 1 controversial draw. The draw was the last fight of Smokin' Joe Frazier's career in 1981.
Wow.
In 2002, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for armed robbery. And in August of 2016, he was released from prison. So, guy
Wow.
had some tough times and bent the rules. But yeah, Joe Frazier's final fight against Jumbo Cummings.
Dang.
Who
That's a
knew?
very interesting stat. Never knew that. That's
Right?
great.
Those kind of little nuggets that you
Yeah.
uncover are so great. Hey, pro basketball, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's arrival in Los Angeles has instantly transformed the struggling Lakers into contenders. Maybe.
Yeah.
As he dominated every statistical category and drew comparisons to legends like Russell and Chamberlain. He's a total player, Billy. He could do everything.
Yeah, he only led the Lakers in scoring, rebounding, block shots, steals, shooting percentage, and playing time, and he was second in assists.
Yeah, this is a typical game against the Bucks. He scores his former team, 30 points, 19 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. So that was Kareem. That was Kareem. I mean, I'm not saying that when Magic got there, Kareem wasn't still a dominant player. He was, but he didn't have to be. You know what I mean? He could share the load with Jamal Wilkes, and then of course Magic, and then McAdoo and Worthy. But at this point, I mean, the fact that they're not contenders shows you that they didn't have much of a cast around them, and that's why Kareem, his numbers were just, gosh, I mean, talk about being the number 1 pick in a fantasy basketball league, right, Mark?
Well, so Bill was saying he, swept all those categories. So he averaged 27.7 points. So it's almost 20 points a game. 16.9 rebounds. It's almost 17 rebounds a game. 4.12 shots. Total minutes, 3,379. He had 1,111 defensive rebounds, which is an NBA single season record. And the team did start off 21-13, but then they started to struggle and they finished at 40-42, under 500, and failed to make the playoffs. So you can have the greatest player in the world, but you need the pieces with them. And when the Lakers 4 years later draft Magic Johnson, there's the piece.
But there was points there where Kareem had Don Ford, an aging Cassie Russell, Lucius Allen, which wasn't what he was before. They didn't put a lot of guys around him, until Magic got there, that really were beneficial to him.
Yeah.
Right.
They had Kermit Washington coming off the bench, but they weren't a team that had that. So Kareem had to do it all. I remember listening to all those games as a kid. It was always Kareem fake left, hook shot, right, good. Kareem fake right, shoot left, hook. He was the whole team.
And I did the show with Kareem about 11 years ago, and he talked about that when the NCAA banned the dunk after his sophomore year because he was just dominating too much at UCLA, and he couldn't dunk anymore, he went to that sky hook, and he said that really helped his game. Learning because he used it in the NBA too. That was his signature shot.
Yep.
And there's no player that's tried to emulate that. Let's just say Wembanyama learned how to do a hook shot. He'd be unstoppable.
Yep.
Not saying he's not right now, but I'm saying Kareem was the only one that ever's done a hook shot, and no one else has ever tried that since.
What Wemby shooting a hook shot would be us getting on like a 5-foot basket and throwing down.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It'd be incredible, but unfortunately, no one else wants to do that, I guess.
No. The day the money ran out, the WFL existed for just 15 chaotic months. Isn't that crazy? Just 15 months. With 2 separate leagues, WFL 1 in 1974 and WFL 2 in 1975, but they were marked by mismanagement, unpaid players, and bizarre logistics. Teams constantly moved and changed names. New York Stars became the Charlotte Hornets. Toronto Northmen became the Memphis Southmen. Washington Ambassadors became Florida. Chicago Fire folded mid-season. They had all sorts of weird rules. Touchdowns at one point were 7 points. Then they tried action points, which instead of point afters was you had to line up on the 2.5-yard line and you had to try to score by, it was basically a 2-point conversion, but it was only for 1 point. So very strange. Some teams like the Memphis Southmen ran professionally and continued operations even after the league folded because they wanted to join the NFL. Didn't happen. So
it didn't happen, yeah.
Didn't work. I find it funny that the Charlotte Hornets were also a football team, man. You know, maybe that's why they didn't have success. All those basketball players trying to play football. I don't know.
Had to be.
But the best story to me was the Honolulu Hawaiians. I mean, first of all, if you're going to put a franchise in Hawaii, that's tough because nobody wants to travel to Hawaii to play because of the long, trip. And then for the Hawaii team, it's hard to go to the States all the time and play. But anyway, so Mike Giddens is the head coach of the team, and he said that the league always seemed tentative to him. They were playing a game in Orlando. It was their first road game. And when they get to the stadium, they found that they were just cementing in the goalposts. Like, they didn't have any goalposts. That would have been interesting. And after their first road game in 1975 in Jacksonville, players were showering when a storm knocked out the electricity in the locker room. The players just assumed that was a cost-cutting measure. And they got the bus driver to pull up to the locker room and shine the headlights in so they could finish dressing. That's the USFL, I'm sorry, the football.
WFL.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Here's another one. During one game, the Memphis Southman's grizzly bear mascot accidentally chewed through a live wire, giving himself a shock and knocking out the stadium scoreboard for about 10 minutes. So, oh, I love that one. And Bill, speaking of Memphis, what was going on with Larry Zonka?
Oh, Larry Zonka, they were saying that 3 million Zonka kick Warfield trio proved far more valuable as a publicity gimmick than as a game winner. My gosh, an unimpressive 7-5 record when the league folded. Zonka was hurt most of the season. Warfield caught fewer passes than a tight end they had on their team named Ed Marshall, whoever that was. And Kick gained less yardage than two guys either named John Harvey or Willie Spencer. So basically it was, thanks for the money, and they took it and ran.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, didn't run very well, but they ran.
Yeah. Yeah. So Birmingham, they end up being the champs, Billy. And then as soon as it ends, what happens to them?
Well, as soon as it ends, the sheriff's deputies moved into the locker room and repossessed the uniforms as soon as the Birmingham team took them off because the Birmingham wouldn't pay in their bills. So there you are getting in your stuff thinking, oh man, we just won the title. And they're taking the one thing like you could keep for, the rest of your life and say, look, I have a championship. Nope. Sheriffs took them.
Yeah. Don't open that champagne, you piece of crap. Give me your uniform.
Champagne be taken too.
Oh, the WFL, the ABA.
Yeah. WHA.
Things. Oh my God. The WHA was around for a little while. At least,
I love that,
right?
man.
But those other leagues are just hysterical.
For the record, because somebody's got to keep score.
Fran Tarkenton, Billy, what's he up to?
He threw a 4-yard pass, but that pass thrown by Fred Tarkenton to Ed Marinaro broke the completion record of 2,830 held by Johnny Unitas.
We mentioned when we had him on a couple weeks ago that when he retired, he held all sorts of NFL records.
Sure did.
And even now, 50 years later, he's still like in the top 20 in a lot. And if you think about it, I read a stat that when he threw 425 attempts, that led the league back then. And I think it was an NFL record. And the NFL record now is close to 700 attempts for a season. So just unbelievable. Hey, Mark, who's the MVP in the National League that was announced this week 50 years ago?
Guy by the name of Joe Morgan, who, Johnny Bench, and there are a lot of players on the Reds that got more notoriety than Morgan, but Morgan to me was the heart and soul of that team and maybe their most important player. So he wins the National League MVP. Second baseman, hits 327. He stole 67 bases, which is crazy, and he scored 107 runs. I mean, and he had that really interesting batting stance. It was almost like he was doing like the chicken. He'd flap his one of his arms.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yep.
Such
like
a unique stance.
Like he was pumping a tire or something.
Yeah,
like
putting some more air in him.
Well, it wasn't a fluke because he wins it again the next year. But the funny thing is, Joe wins the MVP. But as we'll talk about at the end of this month, Pete Rose would win the Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year award. So very interesting. And I mean, that whole, as we've talked about quite a bit. That big red machine, Bench and Foster and Griffey
Perez,
and
yeah.
Perez. Oh my gosh.
Concepcion, Geronimo, Griffey. You just had everybody there.
Real people, real stories. Faces in the crowd.
Faces in the crowd. Bill, introduce us to Jan Merrill.
Well, she's a sophomore at Thames Valley State Technical College in Norwich, Connecticut. She holds a U.S. record in the 1,000-meter run. But she was the dominant long-distance runner in the middle 70s, a notable front runner. She was sort of like what, Bai, that she would run way in front, no one could catch her, and she'd win. She was in the 1976 Olympics and finished 8th in the 1,500-meter run.
Wow. And Mark, Jerry Spicer?
Not Jerry Springer, Jerry Spicer. He's a senior quarterback at Hobart High in Indiana. So he might be the quarterback, but he also happens to be a pretty good kicker. He nails a 61-yarder, believed at that time to be the national high school record. He also threw for 878 yards and 5 touchdowns to lead his team to an 8-2 record. But, that's pretty impressive. And I think in the same game, if I'm not mistaken, he attempted a 63-yarder, but missed it. But, yeah, in the same game, he tried a 63-yarder and missed it. So that's crazy. Can you imagine if he made both of those?
I'm imagining.
I'm thinking that he was a straight leg kicker too, so it's kind of like watching Tom Dempsey kick.
Right.
We got to figure out who the first soccer style kicker was.
I think it was in the 60s. It was Pete Gogol.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. Very good, Mark. Thank you.
The amazing thing now is 50 years later, that guys are just that teams even attempt 68 and 70-yard field goals. I mean, it's actually become kind of a joke now. I mean, 50-yard field goals are, common, and that they never happened back then. They wouldn't even go for them back then.
Nope.
Pull up a chair, pour one more. The 19th hole is open for law.
Nineteenth hole. Bill, the Little League umpires, man, they have had enough.
Yes, this is from Martin Gill from Evanston, Illinois. He says, as a Little League umpire, I was continually aghast at the immaturity of managers. I was sure that the fault lay with forcing the winning ethos of adults upon kids. I've since changed my mind. The villain is our spectator society. Deprived of the physical release of exerting his direct influence on the game, the spectator goes bananas. The manager, aware of the ravages of old age, mourns his own youthful mischances and cleanses himself by taking it out on his kids. The truth is that small children are not terribly concerned with winning. The sense of teamwork and physical exhilaration are goals enough. What we really need are leagues for aging parents.
Yeah.
Fantasy football.
Yeah. Or just put them in a room.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Mark, you got one?
Actually, I don't.
All right. I do. In regard to hockey violence, Gary E. Wilson from Bowling Green, Ohio writes, your article may be comparable to one found in Rome Illustrated in 476 AD. So, Mark, do you remember that magazine?
I do. And guess what? I just do have a letter to mention. But yes, I was around for that.
How were the
Bill, wasn't I celebrating my 50th then?
You were.
How were the Tigers that year?
Tigers have been in existence since what, 1900 or whatever?
Yeah. All right, go.
Oh, so mine it's about Sportsman's of the Year, and it's from James C. Miller of Bloomington, Indiana. And he said, O.J. Simpson, he's the best open field winner since Gale Sayers. He's a lot more than that.
Yeah. He's a real killer.
He slices his way through the opposition.
Stop being a cut up.
Yeah. All right. Was it a perfect show? No, it never is. But we had two perfect guests, Kent Benson and Bobby Wilkerson, from the last team to have a perfect season in college hoops, the 76 Indiana Hoosiers. What a team. And you can see why they were so darn good. Next week, Jim O'Brien is our guest, one of the most prolific sports writers of the last 40 years, an expert on the Steelers and the ABA, and we'll talk to him about both. Until then, thanks, Billy. Thanks, Mark. I'm Scott, and we are. Go.
Past our prime.
Past our prime. Or in the words of Dan Fouts, get a life, Mark.